Theodore Beza, Icones, Johannes Reuchlin, Episode 2. Istis vero tam ecclesiae necessariis, quam superstitione tunc gradrasanti exitialibus conatibus se tenebriones sophistae, colonienses videlicet, hoc strato quodam duce, ma theologi huius fumi vi tanquam alter cacus ex antris suis exciti, mox tanta contentione appossuerunt ut Romam usque ad leonem decimum tunc pontificem bonis litteris non inimicum causae cognitio sit delata. There are some really challenging portions here in this sentence, as well as some really interesting Latin. We start with vero, which is adversative, but, and then we have some datives. Istis necessariis, then we have superstitione, which is modified by the participle grassanti. But to these necessariis, these patrons of the church, as much as to the superstition that was at the time, and what we here see as like this is really tunc, because there's a ligature, that's called a ligature, which means we have one character which represents two in order to save type. So, but to these servants or patrons of the church, as much as tamquam to the superstition that at the time grassanti. Grassanti is a participle, a present active participle, from the deponent first conjugation verb grassor grassare, which means to roam about, which was at that time roaming about, that is the superstition, tenebriones sophistae. Now here we have two nouns, tenebriones, which means a swindler or a huckster, a fraud, and then we have sophistae, another noun which means a sophist. It's a masculine first declension noun. So we then have our subjects, tenebriones sophistae, masculine, plural, and nominative. So, but, that's vero, to these servants of the church as well as to the superstition, tenebriones sophistae, these swindlers and sophists. Then we have a long parenthetical portion which explains who the tenebriones sophistae are, and we'll get to that in a minute. They appossuerunt, they set themselves against, they oppose themselves, or they set themselves against, these shucksters and shysters and hucksters and sophists did, with such great intensity, mox tanto contentione, that, now here comes the result. And what Beza is talking about is how Reuchlin began to spread the knowledge of Hebrew among the Germans as well as the knowledge of Greek, and he soon ran afoul of some elements of the Inquisition, which comes in the Colonienses portion. So who were these tenebriones, these sophistae? He says, obviously, or of course I mean, the residents of Kern, Colonienses, that is, the theologians of the city of Kern, which was an imperial city, with a certain man named Hochstrato, and that's Jacob van Hoogstraten, as their leader. So when they did that, they were, the Colonienses, they were mataiologi, which means people of very low learning, smatterers, people who are magicians and tricksters and conjurers. They were exciti, roused like a second Cacus from his own tombs by the force of this smoke, huius fumi. So there's a lot going on here in terms of the metaphor and the explanation historically. Remember that Reuchlin's name means fumeus, smoky. That was his nickname, also known as kapnio, from the Greek kapneon, meaning smoky. So, roused by the power of this smoke, meaning the teaching that's the pun of fumi, the teaching that Reuchlin was bringing, exciti, the theologians or the mataiologi of Kern, were roused like a second Cacus from his cavern. So the mythology here is found in Aeneid Book 8. In Aeneid Book 8, Hercules comes through the region of Italy, and this monster Cacus is smoked out of his cave so that Hercules can kill him. So Beza is saying that the mataiologi, he doesn't call them theologians, of Kern, were roused by the smoke of Reuchlin. Reuchlin, therefore, is Hercules, and the second Cacus is Hoogstrato, or Jacob van Hoogstraten. So these tenebriones, these sophistae, opposuerunt, set themselves against not just the interests of the church, but against the superstition, and Reuchlin was one of the Kern members of the Inquisition. Finally, we get to the result clause, ut, that as a result, all the way to Rome, Romam usque, to Leo X, who at that time was the Pope, and he was not an enemy, non inimicum, to good literature, bonis literis, that's a dative with inimicum, the knowledge, cognitio, of his case, and this is the knowledge of Reuchlin's case with Reuchlin, and this is what's known as the peppercorn or the pfefferkorn affair. You can look this up. There's a wonderful book by Erika Rummel that deals with this very case, a really good monograph. So the knowledge of his case, the cognitio causae, Reuchlin's case, sit delata, was carried all the way to Rome to Pope Leo X. So that's this long, very artful, laden with mythological allusions sentence which Beza has composed. Down here you can see a photo of a very famous statue of Hercules in Caucasus, which stands in Florence.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that free lesson. Please like and subscribe, hit the bell. You can also become a patron at patreon.com/LatinPerDiem. And if you really loved it, you can leave a tip right here as a super fan. Thank you so much.